Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to the Rehearsal Recap Podcast, where I take a deep dive into each episode of Nathan Fielder's hit show. Join me as I break down the moments that make us laugh, cry, and shake our heads in disbelief. I'm going to be talking about, in this episode, Rehearsal Season 1, Episode 4, The Fielder Method. This episode aired on August 5th of last year, 2022. In this episode, we are seeing, in an effort to make everything more real and more authentic, as Nathan is constantly striving to do, he goes to LA and starts a studio, an actor's studio, to train actors, to teach actors the quote-unquote Fielder method. Nathan is, we see Nathan living in the shoes of one of his students. It's very creepy. And we see he goes back to Oregon, and the show has to deal with Adam, who is now 15 years old when he gets back from LA, so he missed 9 years, which I find to be very interesting aspect of this episode. And then trying to make everything as authentic and real, and to get authentic and real performances from these actors. Because that's something that he, obviously trying to make these simulations, these rehearsals, as real and authentic as possible. And we also see how, in Nathan changing and recommending Adam change his performance, seeing how in a lot of ways Adam is following in the footsteps of Angela when she was his age, which is kind of crazy. So very interesting episode, which we will get into right now, but definitely a little bit different from last episode. Very manipulative, very kind of dark, very dark. This one is dark and in a different way. Nathan is always every one of these episodes, there is an aspect to the episodes that are like, it's like a horror movie, right? There are aspects of every one of these episodes, maybe not the first episode, but that really kind of bring up the emotions and tension that you would get while watching a horror film. And it's kind of insane that these reality TV shows are able to do that. And I think a lot of that is just the premise and Nathan's just ultimate desire to make these rehearsals as absolutely realistic as possible. So this episode, let's get into it. This episode starts off just a little discussion. Nathan and Angela talking in the kitchen as she's making some spaghetti. We are back in rural Oregon, where their house that is the stage of this rehearsal is located. And Angela's sharing some of her past, talking about how she hated her parents. Her dad was never around. That's why she hated him. And that's why one of the reasons she rebelled and got into drinking and doing drugs, telling Nathan that, she used to smoke weed, she used to drop acid, and she even got into cocaine, which is like, I knew a lot of kids that got into that stuff young, and definitely that's when they get into all of the drugs, right? There's no, which is like the weed and the acid, those are, okay, that's one kind of category of drug. And then there's things like cocaine. I know a lot of kids that got into pills, right? They would just go into their parents' medicine cabinet and just experiment to see how the different pills they had, see how they made them feel. One of the reasons why we have a massive opioid epidemic, because of all the doctors who effortlessly prescribe these drugs. But also, we heard a little bit of this when she was on her date with Robin, how she was kind of this rebellious kid and got into all this kind of a lifestyle. And of course, Nathan really taken aback by hearing her say that. But then that's just kind of how this episode opens. Then we are seeing Nathan going back to LA, right? Because he needs actors for these rehearsals, and he wants to make sure these actors are going to be providing him with the performances that he wants. He wants authenticity. He wants real. He wants these people to accurately be these characters in the fullest extent, right? He wants, which a lot of, I would imagine, is method, right? He wants to do the most method of method type of acting. So he goes back to LA, opens up a studio to teach his quote-unquote fielder method. And in talking to these students, he's like, if your performance isn't good in a normal show, they'll just change the channel. But your performance is not necessarily for the show that is being created. Your performance is for the individual who's participating in these rehearsals. So if your performance isn't good, you could potentially ruin someone's life, right? So on some level, Nathan understands the type of impact he is having on these people, right? Like, maybe not from the correct perspective, right? Like in the previous episode, his biggest worry with Patrick was that Nathan was going to have to tell him that the grandpa that was the actor had died, right? That was versus the fact that he had manipulated this complete scenario where Patrick was with people that he knew to be real but were actually actors, right? There's this level of manipulation that happened in that episode with Patrick and that happened in the first episode with Core, where Nathan is trying to manipulate these people by having actors in scenarios where the primary doesn't know that there are actors there, right? There's nothing in this episode that is as like everybody knows who's an actor and who's not an actor, aside from the primaries that these students are going to go study. But that level of the manipulation and creepiness of the show isn't present in this episode. But Nathan finds a way to the most creative creepiness ever. But he's trying to teach these actors how to prepare, basically telling them that they need to spy on their quote-unquote primaries. Stalking them is the preparation that these actors need to do to prepare, right? So not necessarily advocating for the right type of behavior. And, there's conversations with these actors kind of telling Nathan their different approaches to acting. We find out their first assignment is to go find a real person to become their primary, and then go learn everything. Go learn everything they can about them, and come back tomorrow dressed like them. That is their assignment that he leaves them at the end of their first class. After the actors leave, in order to get a sense of what the actors thought about Nathan, because he's always trying to perfect things, he's always critical of everything and constantly trying to make things better. So what he does is he recreates the class. He is going to play one of the students in the class so that he can get a sense of what the class was like from the perspective of these students, these actors that are going there to learn, right? So we're starting to see the layers of reality that are existing in this episode, where now Nathan is going to relive that class, but now he's going to relive it as one of the students. There's going to be an actor playing Nathan that is teaching the class. There are going to be actors pretending to be all the different students. So we're already getting into layers of reality. And interesting, right? It's an interesting, I mean, all this stuff is it's all wackadoo, really. So he's being critical of himself in a lot of ways. Uh, like as he's like concerned kind of with how Nathan is presenting what these students need to do. But his biggest worry when reliving this class, aside from what Nathan is asked, what he had asked his students, and now he's seeing the actor as Nathan asking him to do. Aside from stalking as a way to prep, he's like, oh, I wish I could see the reactions of the other classmates. We're all facing the same way, and like he wanted to be able to see how other people are reacting to what Nathan wants them to do in stalking, and to see if it's like, if he's the only one that feels like maybe this is kind of weird. But the method makes sense to him, right? As a student. The next day, he makes some changes. The chairs are now in a circle, and they briefly listen to one of the students they just chose their primary. They found their social media account via geotags, and then after finding that social media account, they then were able to find all of their social media accounts, finding out that they were, having this surgery done, like instantly illustrating how privacy doesn't necessarily exist these days, especially if you're active in any way on social media. Like the idea that there is any kind of privacy to our lives is kind of hilarious. In just seeing this, one of these students just discussing how easy it was for her to find all these social media accounts and find out intimate details. Like she knew that this person was going to be having a surgery done. Kind of crazy, right? Also, we see how some of the students are struggling. Thomas specifically kind of wasn't really able to get much information from his primary. So Nathan pulls him aside, seeing that he's struggling, and just to get a better sense of why it is, trying to give him some ideas. Like he went and his primary worked at an acai bowl place, and while he was in line, he didn't really get a chance to find out much information from this guy that's working at an acai bowl place. And Nathan's like, well, you could like spill your food, and that would kind of make the situation last longer so that you may be able to get more information out of this thing, which is just, kind of, interesting to see. Like clearly Nathan is myopically focused on these people successfully, quote unquote, stalking their primaries in a way that it is just leading down a creepier and creepier road as we go. And Nathan fixating on this guy Thomas gets creepy as well. After class, again, Nathan relives the class again to see how his changes went, to see how it may have felt now being using Thomas as his primary. Nathan is now reliving this class as Thomas. And he said he's like happy with the changes, happy with the seating arrangements. He said he felt special when Nathan pulled him aside, right, to get this one-on-one thing. He's dressed the same. He's wearing a wig. And he didn't have any issues. After reliving day number 2, Nathan is like, okay, I'm on track with this crazy idea of teaching these kids. Then we see Nathan back at his apartment, which is his actual place that he lives in LA, which he's happy to be back in LA. He's eating this delicious looking sushi out of a box, which, the times I've seen this a few times, and I just have never, I guess, gone to the right sushi place that you get the food on this like big box, and like it has all the descriptions of it look delicious. I don't know. I'm kind of hungry right now thinking of that, sidetracking me a bit. Let's take a quick break right now to talk about, are you a fan of original artwork and live events? Look no further than the Many Faces series by Ray Taylor and the weekly live stream over at youtube.com/inspired disorder. This ongoing series explores the endless possibilities of the human face through abstract ink paintings on paper, capturing unique expressions of emotion, mood, tone, and energy in just a few minimal features. Join me every Thursday at 4:20 Pacific Time as I paint live. Follow the Many Faces series and discover the endless possibilities of the human face. Don't miss out on this opportunity to be part of the action and own a piece of original artwork by me, Ray Taylor. Head to youtube.com/inspired disorder every Thursday to catch the live stream, and visit inspireddisorder.com to browse and purchase the Many Faces artwork. And now, let's get back to the show. But he's back in his real home, trying to check in with Angela to see how that's going, but of course no answer. Obviously, it's pretty clear that she is mostly checked out. She's not really invested in this rehearsal in the same ways that Nathan is, and she is almost an actor in his rehearsal more than they are co-participating in this rehearsal. But she's no answer from Angela. The next day at school, they're doing their warm-ups thing, you know. Now's the test to see if they can, you know, physically embody their primaries. And so you watch all of these actors recreate their primaries' jobs, like doing these mundane jobs, right? And clearly not very good. Like they, you know, one's a mechanic. She doesn't know what the terms are. Another guy is like, his primary apparently works in like a butcher shop, and he doesn't really know what he's doing. They're kind of imitating in a way, but not like, if you ever done those jobs, you would know that they're doing it wrong. And so that's not the level of accuracy Nathan is here for. But he's seeing that, you know, they're in the right track, but clearly not doing enough. He wants them to go deeper, for sure. And he's arranged for all of them, most of them, to actually work in the jobs, the same jobs as their primary. So for Thomas, he's going to get a job working at an acai bowl place. For one lady who's a mechanic, she's going to be working as a mechanic, security guard, butcher shop. So they're all going to actually, to understand what it is to do those jobs, they have to do those jobs, right? Because that's how you get the most authentic. You can't pretend to know something that you've never done, right? There's something missing. Nathan isn't about anything halfway. He has to do everything all the way. A lot of actors are super into this process, right? They're like, okay, yeah. Like a lot of them, Thomas not very much, but everybody else for the most part is super into it. Thomas having a little trouble, obviously. It definitely doesn't seem like he's as into it as everybody else. And he's definitely not very comfortable with the whole stalking/fielder method of everything. And Nathan doesn't understand why he feels that way, because when he relived the class as Thomas, he didn't have those feelings. So he doesn't understand. I relived the class. I'm not getting any of these feelings, right? Like, as if just pretending to be a person, quote unquote, reliving the class is somehow going to put you in that same mind state as that person, which is just illustrating in a lot of ways how Nathan is in his own reality in a lot of ways. So he decides to go back and relive the classes again from the first day, right? So not just reliving day 2 again. Nathan's going back to relive day 1 to see what he missed, right? See why he doesn't have those same feelings that Thomas has. And in participating in that first class again, reliving that first class again, He says that he had a rush of excitement when he saw the cameras, right? Because obviously these classes are being filmed, and not just any cameras, HBO cameras, and how like he got that rush because like he wants to be on camera, but then he's going to play it cool, but then he doesn't really know. Then confusion kind of sets in because like if you're trying to train the actors for a show, why would you be filming the training, right? And am I supposed to be performing now, or because cameras are on me now? Like he gets into a kind of a confused mind state as Thomas reliving the first day, and kind of getting a glimpse as to how crazy this whole thing is, right? I mean, he's going back to relive the first day again. He's aware of how it must feel for these actors to be in a class, to be training to be on a show, while also being in the show because there's cameras going on, right? It's just it's such a weird, it's just like such a weird roundabout layers of craziness. Like he's so close to seeing what everything's going, like what everything looks like from the outside, but just kind of seeing it, but not really, not getting it, not really. But as Thomas, as the character, he like didn't want to ask about the cameras. He wanted to impress Nathan, so he didn't bring up the fact that he was confused about the cameras. And then after the class, it shows Nathan as Thomas be given these release forms from one of the production assistants or whatever, right? You got to sign a release because you're on camera. We need to have your release so we can put you on camera. And it's a bunch of pages in this release. And he's like, oh, this is like a lot of pages. And everybody's just kind of signing it. Nobody's reading these pages. The PA's like, yeah, it's just a standard contract. You can just sign it. And Nathan's like, oh, this is kind of overwhelming in a lot of ways. And, he didn't really notice that when he was reliving or consider that the first time he was reliving that situation. But he realizes that he's not going far enough, right? There's still something missing, right? He still doesn't feel like he's authentically in the headspace of Thomas, right? As the teacher of the Fielder method, he has to understand what he's teaching, right? And seeing how deep he needs to go to actually feel like that, so he knows what to tell his actors. So then we see the actors at their jobs now. They're at their jobs for a week, doing all these different jobs. Nathan ends up going to Thomas, who's working at a different acai bowl place than his primary, but goes in basically reenacting what Thomas's interaction was with his primary, but now Nathan is doing it to Thomas. So it's like you have the primary, then in this other layer of reality you have Thomas, and then now Nathan is the Thomas in the secondary reality. I know, it's insane. It's insane. But we hear, as they're back in the class, we hear from one of the students that she was actually able to get into the home of her primary. And Nathan, very encouraged by that, tells everybody, "Oh, that's amazing. We've never had anybody get into the home of their primaries. Like, you're doing really good." Like, really encouraging what, like these stalking and potentially breaking and entering, right? Under what situation, what circumstances did she get into this person's home? And Nathan just, oh, let's give her a round of applause. Like, just doesn't at all realize until he's Thomas, and then he's kind of reconsidering these tactics, right? He's like, well, as Thomas, reliving as Thomas, he's like, oh, maybe these tactics aren't the best. And then again, when Nathan goes home to his actual apartment in LA, the illusion of everything is completely gone, right? So he's like, I have to live this 24/7. Like, it's not enough that I just am reliving in somebody's shoes for these moments in a day and then go back to my home where those things are no longer real. I need to go deeper, right? It's all about going deeper. So what he does is he convinces Thomas to move into an apartment that is similar to his primary's apartment, right? So you got to move out of your house. We're going to get you an apartment that's similar to that. We find out that his primary has these roommates. So Nathan casts actors to play Thomas's roommates that are replicating what it's like for his primary to go home after work. And then Nathan is going to take care of Thomas's plants and he's going to house sit for Thomas, which will allow Nathan to do what Thomas is doing, but actually being in Thomas's home, which is where this episode really feels creepy, right? It is those horror films where somebody's stealing their identity, right? But it's all in an effort for Nathan to go deeper as Thomas, to experience life as Thomas, living in his house. And it's just like that student who was able to get into their primary's house. Now Nathan is standing, right? Thomas gives him his keys. Nathan goes to Thomas's house. So now Nathan is able to be in Thomas's house as Thomas and doing that thing that he was encouraging everybody else, like so proud of them. Oh, you got into his house. Nathan himself got into this house, right? And we see as Nathan walks in, very creepy, goes into Thomas's room, and then his bed is full of stuffed animals, which is kind of a hilarious contrast of how absolutely creepy it is that Nathan is there in general, and then to see that Thomas almost has like this childlike bedroom, right? It's like there is no normalcy, whatever that word means. There is no normalcy present in any of these shows. Like, every single person involved is like, has at least Thomas having stuffed animals on his bed is like probably the most normal thing, right? Still, you'd be surprised under normal circumstances to know that this 20-something, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s guy has stuffed animals on his bed. Like, it looks like a child's bedroom. But for whatever reason, they find these people are like, I don't know, man. It is just, it's crazy but a very kind of a funny yet very creepy moment, right? Because it's very creepy and it just gets even creepier, really, because Nathan starts wearing, he's wearing the wig, he's eating cereal in the kitchen, he's, wearing a tank top, right? It's definitely like a horror movie, stealing his identity, in a lot of ways like Talented Mr. Ripley, being as this other person. And Nathan, who is almost kind of dead, like the way he's almost dead inside in some ways, how he's not able to pick up on these different things, how he's just so willing to do these things, to go to this extent, to be in the shoes of this person, to make the thing more authentic. He's playing his video games, he's playing with his nunchucks, he's sleeping in his bed. Like, he is living as Thomas 24/7, right? No more breaking of the illusion, going back to his apartment. 24/7, he is Thomas, right? And even so much as to get himself a job at an Asahi Place. So just as Thomas had, just as he had lived Thomas's first day and second day of school, it's this acting school, but also Nathan is given an Asahi job place just as, so he's doing all of the things that Thomas is doing, and even moves in, not only working at a Asahi Bowl place, but also moving into an apartment like he did for Thomas. And Nathan also has actors. So now there's 3 levels, right? You have the primary, who is working at Asahi Place, has roommates. You have Thomas working at a different Asahi Place with roommates that are actors portraying the primary's roommates. Then you have Nathan, this third level down. Nathan living as Thomas, living as the primary, where Nathan has roommates that are pretending to be the act pretending to be. It is just insane, the levels that are being established, the levels of delusion and or reality that are being created in this show in order to portray this thing. And even still, he's realizing there's limitations, right? You just can't go deep enough. You can never go deep enough. You're not. Nathan wants to become this person. He wants to feel and know all of the thoughts of this person, but you can't, because you didn't experience their life. You would have to relive their life to have their experiences, to know why they would react to a thing in a certain way. It's just like, I mean, in a lot of ways, it is interesting psychologically to understand the complexities of people and how impossible it would be to simulate and understand all of those complexities by just pretending. Obviously, there's going to be limitations. Let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about Attention all Ray Taylor Show fans! We're excited to announce we've just released a line of exclusive merchandise featuring original artwork inspired by the show. Our high-quality shirts and biodegradable phone cases are a perfect way to show your support for the show and make a great gift for any fan. Plus, with each purchase, you'll be helping us continue to bring you great content. So don't wait. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com now and check out the full collection. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll show your support by grabbing some Ray Taylor Show merchandise today. And now, let's get back to the show. So the next day at class, the actors are putting on a showcase, basically acting out the jobs that their primaries do for the class. They're given their certificates. They get pictures taken with Nathan after they graduate or whatever. They're all stoked. So after this whole thing is done, Nathan going back to Oregon, right? He's nervous, right? Because he's been gone for what, like a couple weeks or something like that. And when he gets back, Adam is 15 now. Right? Last time we saw Adam, he was 6. He's 15 now. In the reality of that simulation with Angela, Nathan was gone for 9 years. The cool digital mirror that he has installed, he sees himself 9 years older, right? And he wants to sit down, now that he's kind of experienced these things with these students, he wants to sit down with Adam, kind of breaking that fourth wall. I don't know if it's so weird to know what walls we're breaking with this show, but he wants to talk to the actor playing Adam, right? Break character. Told not to break character, but ask this actor to break character. And Nathan wants to know if that's like the reaction that Adam gave Nathan when he came home. After what would have been 9 years, right? Dad, gone 9 years, finally comes home. The welcome that this kid gives him a hug, is that what he would say would be authentic? Wanting to know the actor's opinion on that situation, right? For a dad to come back after 9 years and the actor's like, well, I think he'd feel more like he abandoned his family. Gone for 9 years, he comes home, he's just like, oh, hey, what's up? As if nothing had happened, right? So Nathan wants to try it over again, right? There's a do-over. Let's do that over, right? A lot of do-overs in this episode, right? Nathan trying to run through almost, he's rehearsing to perfect rehearsals more than he's rehearsing for the thing, right? That is what, for in a lot of ways, this episode is all about rehearsing the rehearsals, right? How do we get this rehearsal? How many tries do we have to do to make this right? Similar to the many times he rehearsed with Tor and Patrick, running through those things, trying to make those right. He's doing that in some ways, trying to get the most authentic performance from this actor playing Adam, right? So Nathan comes home again, and it's a much more real performance, right? The kid's just like, oh, nice to see you come. And then he just kind of walks out, right? Definitely much more of an authentic performance. So, Nathan's delusional process is at least rendering authenticity on some level, right? So he asked the actor playing his son, he's like, do you have any friends that have experienced this where their dad is, absent for a lot of their life? And the actor's like, yeah, I think I know a guy. So he wants him to go spend time, wants him to do the things, kind of telling this actor to do the Fielder method. It's like, this worked for these actors in LA. Maybe they'll work for you too, right? So he wants to go have him experience, spend time with this person, understand what that is, right? He's like, while the performances are going on, seeing Nathan try to bond with Adam. It's like, hey, you want to watch some magic tricks or whatever? And now Adam is the more authentic version of what Adam would be in that situation. It's like, no, I don't want to see your magic tricks, Dad. First off, I'm 15. And second off, you were gone for 9 years. Why would I want to see? But of course, it also makes sense that Nathan would go to magic tricks as a way to bond, right? Because he's so just disconnected from so many, just reality in so many ways. And Nathan trying to figure out how his absence, trying to flesh out how his absence would have affected or damaged this kid, right? And get the information from his friend, right? Finding out that, he's like asking, he's like, okay, so what did you find out? Seeing how this kid that he knows, that this actor knows, how he was damaged, how he got into drug problems, how he's got a kid on the way, getting into drinking. And then we see what this actor is saying about how a kid would be acting is Angela's story in a lot of ways, right? Angela also being less of a participant, definitely being more of an observer as Nathan's trying to work this thing out with Adam. Angela's kind of in the periphery, but also this character that Adam is becoming is in many ways what Angela was saying at the beginning of this episode, how she was like, because her dad was not around. She got into drugs. She got into these things. And now she's seeing how Adam, because Nathan was gone for 9 years, is following in her footsteps. And in a lot of ways, she's kind of stepping back, although there are scenes where there's some confrontations going on around the dinner table or whatever. But she is seeing Adam turn into what she was. And she recognizes that and tries to use that in a way to communicate with Adam, the Adam character, right? And Nathan asks, because of these do-over things, because he missed those 9 years, he asks Angela if it's okay if they rewind and bring Adam back to 6 years old, right? Because he missed all of those years. And he wants to redo them because this is all about, it's really about Nathan wanting to rehearse for himself. It definitely has become this situation, this part of the show, has never really felt like it was about Angela. She never felt like she was into this simulation at all. And since Nathan's involvement, definitely feels like it's him wanting to do this for himself. And like he's been doing in this episode a lot, is this do-over. He wants to do these things over. He wants to go back in time, and whether it's with the class, going back and reliving that class over and over again, figuring out different ways, reliving the first day of class as Thomas in different times. Wants to do that with Adam. He wants to do over with Adam. Right? And they play out the Adam character at 15 having the drug problems, being the person he may have turned into because his dad was gone. They play that out in a way that I think is really interesting, right? He ODs at home, and Nathan plays it as, oh, he's like crying, yells for Angela. She comes down, and she's like, which is like an interesting thing because they know that it's performance, but Nathan still is trying to make this feel and be a simulation in some ways. And it's kind of clear that Angela is just an actor at this point, right? She's doing this to make Nathan feel like it's real. But kind of crazy. And then you see some of the actors from LA playing paramedics that come to take Adam after he ODs. Adam wakes up on the gurney and runs away, right? And then Nathan spends all night looking for Adam in the town, asking people if they saw him. And then the next morning, at a park, you see Adam hanging out with his other, his other troubled kids, and goes to slide down a slide, and in goes 15-year-old Adam, and out comes 6-year-old Adam, which is kind of a stylistic way to transition from old Adam to young Adam. And then also to see the actor playing old Adam crawl his way back out of the slide, and to kind of look around and to like, are we done? Is this it? Is this a cut? Are we done? Like, it's the line between simulation and reality is always like, as the audience on some level, you're always like kind of questioning, how much do people know? What is going on? But I like that they played that out. I like the fact that Adam was in many ways reflecting, and clearly when they were putting this episode together, they specifically chose that clip when Angela was making spaghetti, talking about her childhood, and how that perfectly sums up what was going to be happening with Adam, especially once Nathan got back from LA. Just super interesting, right? Nobody was influenced or manipulated by actors. Like, everybody knew who the actors were at all times. Nobody was being manipulated in the ways that Patrick and Core were, right? But it still manages to be absolutely creepy when Nathan is living in Thomas's home and wearing his clothes, sleeping in his bed, when Nathan is encouraging these people to stalk, right? It wasn't on camera, but outside, as these people were learning their primaries, there was a lot of actors on some level, I guess, some levels of manipulation. And it got really interesting when it goes back to Oregon and trying to get an authentic performance out of Adam, and how that reflected in so many ways Angela's past. And how they just played that out with him ODing, running away, and then in many ways that would have been there's tons of troubled kids who left, ran away, got out of their parents' house at a young age, and just never came back. In that version, that story of Adam, that was abandoned by Nathan for 9 years. They played that story out to kind of its conclusion, as it were, for that simulation. And we're seeing Angela becoming more of a participant in Nathan's simulation than it is her simulation at all, right? It's very much, she's more of an actor, really, now in this project than anything. So that's how this episode ends, really, with Nathan walking away with 6-year-old Adam. Next episode, episode 5, titled Apocalypto. Nathan and Angela are going to butt heads over religious differences. Nathan's parents visit that kind of instigate that butting of heads in a lot of ways. And Nathan struggling to be more assertive. We saw in previous episodes how Angela was kind of the director of what was going on in a lot of ways. And there's no secondary rehearsal in the next episode, similar to, I guess kind of in this one, but he has yet to do a rehearsal for somebody else yet. It's still, next episode is definitely more focused on him and Angela. But thank you all for checking out this episode of the Rehearsal Recap Podcast. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for my analysis of the next episode of the Rehearsal, and join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube if you're watching this episode. See you next week.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.